After a not so great season 1 of the Louisiana State Only Challenge, we're in the offseason rather quickly. Second episode started off with some really poor play, continuing on what we saw in the first episode, and instead of putting out more content, trying to see if perhaps the team could turn it around, we just went through a straight up sim. We really only went through not even the full first half of the season. Second half of the season, just straight up sim, because we really wanted to get to watching some good play, and the team just wasn't doing it. We finished 5-12. So today will be the first off season where we're going to look to try to make some big moves. Hopefully, free agency is going to be good for us. If not, maybe we'll have to try to trade away some players to make a more well-rounded roster. I think that was the problem we had year one, where we had some really good players, but then we didn't have solid players at every position. So we'll see what moves we could end up making, but let's start by taking a look at the yearly awards. I don't imagine us being in the running for any of these, but we'll take a look. Lamar Jackson wins MVP, and Coach of the Year, Doug Peterson. Over on the AFC, we have Offensive Player of the Year, Lamar Jackson. Defensive Player of the Year, Von Miller. Offensive Rookie, Breece Hall. Defensive Rookie, Sauce Gardner. Best Quarterback, Lamar Jackson. Best Running Back, Dalvin Cook with the Jaguars. Best Receiver, Juju Smith-Schuster. Best O-Line, Quentin Nelson. Best D-Line, Von Miller. Best Linebacker, TJ Watt, which is really just Best Edge Rush. Best DB, Sauce Gardner. Best Kicker, Greg Zuerlein. On the NFC side, Brandon Ayuk won Offensive Player of the Year. That's fairly new. I don't think I've ever seen him win much of anything. It doesn't look like we have anyone in the running on offense. Defensive Player of the Year, Aaron Donald. We did have Quan Alexander down at 9, and I'm kind of surprised that he's on the list above Patrick Queen, because Patrick Queen had 150 tackles. I think was second in interceptions with like 3, and was the only defensive player to get a touchdown as well. So kind of surprising. Offensive Rookie goes to Kenny Pickett. Defensive Rookie, Trayvon Walker. We did have Percy Butler at safety, down at 8. Best Quarterback went to Dak Prescott. And Joe Burrow wasn't even in the running, so really need to try to fix the offense, because that shouldn't be happening. Best Running Back goes to Zeke Elliott. Neither of our running backs on the list, and they could possibly both be traded this offseason. We'll see what we have to do. Brandon Ayuk, Best Receiver. Justin Jefferson down at 7. Best O-Line, Joel Bitonio. And yeah, not a single person for us on the list. More work needs to be done with the offensive line. Defensive line, Best Player, Aaron Donald. Best Linebacker, Hassan Reddick. Quan Alexander on the list, down at 9. Best DB, Jalen Johnson. And Best Kicker, Ryan Santoso. I don't feel like I've ever heard Santosa. I have heard of Santos, though. Cairo Santos for us, down at 7. So in terms of winning much of anything this first season, definitely did not go very well. We at least had a couple guys in the running, but not some of the guys who I expected we should have had. But it's time to put season 1 behind us and jump in to the offseason. And it's the New York Giants winning their Super Bowl. It is their 5th time winning the Super Bowl, 6-time NFC champions. They win 35-17 over the Cincinnati Bengals. Dak Prescott, the Super Bowl MVP. As for retirements, as expected, Al Woods does hang it up after 13 years. Did not expect him to come back, being 36 years old. Now, this is a spot that we may have a guy on roster who can fill it, but in order to do that, we'll need to bring in another starting caliber edge rusher. So just some more work we need to try to do. And on top of that, we also need to try to bring back a lot of players. We have 23 guys available to make contract offers for. Now, some of them might have some interest, but I feel like a lot of them probably aren't going to, like Cairo Santos, because we didn't perform very well this last season. So we'll see who we end up actually being able to bring back. A lot of these guys, I'll jot their names down, and we'll come back to them in open free agency, because I'm not going to try to put in a big offer for a 29-year-old or 28-year-old that's 67 overall. And I do think the only real big one for us to go after is DJ Chark, who is interested. And I think what we're going to offer here is a 4-year deal worth $6 million per season, so 24 in total. Now, will he accept? He's happy to sign and continue. Fantastic. Much needed. I think he and Justin Jefferson were both 1,000-yard receivers for us. And then Terrence Marshall, I think, was just shy of 900. So really good to get him back. The only other guy with major interest is Bo Pete Keys as a backup corner. So most of these guys are probably just going to say no and come back to an open free agency. And speaking of open free agency, here is where we are. Stage 1, round 1. And there's really not a whole lot of different guys to really bring in. The only new possible guy we are trying to bring in is Cade York, the kicker out of LSU. Caro Santos was not very good for us last year. He missed quite a fair few amount of field goals. So trying to bring in someone else there. We'll see how well that works out. He is a star dev. I don't really know what that means for a kicker. Trying to bring back Ryan Wright at punter. Damian Lewis is probably the big one. We're offering him a lot of money. We'll see if he ends up taking it. They say expected value is about $7 million per year. We're definitely paying over that because we're trying to make sure we bring him in because there's a lot of other teams interested. Besides him, trying to bring back Cordell Float, who did start for us a majority of the season at that slot corner spot, and a primary backup at linebacker in Jabril Cox. So nothing splashy. There's really not a whole lot of other options in terms of top key guys. Unfortunately, they didn't hit the open market, so we might have to try to make some trades with whatever we have available to us. But let's try to at least evaluate this first round here. I hit the wrong one. Evaluate, and all but two, the kicker and punter, have decided. And luckily for us, Damian Lewis is back. We bring back Cordell Float and Jabril Cox. And with our next set of players, going to try to bring in almost an entirely new set of running backs because the two we do have, I think we might be able to use to possibly make some trades. So we're going to try to bring in Boston Scott, 28 years old, a little bit on the older side, but has a decent balance between a little bit of some power, a little bit of some elusiveness. He could catch the ball out of the backfield. I think our primary guy would be Tyrion Davis-Price. He's a young guy, try to see what he could do, and then just to make sure we have a power guy on roster, Darrell Williams. Still trying to bring back the punter or bring in a new kicker. Let's evaluate one more time here. And all but two have decided in Scott and Davis-Price. We do bring in Williams, and we do bring back Ryan Wright and bring in Cade York. So as for these two other guys, a new offer is coming in for Price, so we're going to have to raise his price. And we've at least leveled the offer here. It'll be up to Davis-Price to choose if he wants to go with us or the Titans. Went ahead and added a few other guys as well, trying to bring back Patrick Johnson as an edge rush, same as Steven Sullivan at tight end, and another edge rusher in Andre Anthony. We have one more evaluation we could do in stage 1. So let's evaluate. Two players decide, including Davis-Price. And it is to come to the Saints. So we do bring in Price. We gave him a lot of money. So I was sure hoping he was going to join. 5 years, 17.5 mil. That's a lot for a running back in today's market. Hopefully he will pan out for us, but that does give us the option to try to make some trades as well. And speaking of trades, I just want to see what could we possibly try to do here to bring in Danielle Hunter. They would want some of our best players or a future round 1 and a current round 2. It's a little bit too much to ask for. Now, another area of need is at safety, and Xavier Woods was just a Pro Bowler in this series. He's not a splashy guy when you look at his ratings, but I think moving him over to strong safety would fit a little bit better. And he might be someone we could actually try to make a trade for, especially at 28 years old, 79 overall. If we ask what they're looking for, a lower overall in Jacob Phillips and Darrell Williams at running back that we just picked up. But with them having an interest in running back, I'm more so wondering if we could get Woods, maybe send them Fournette, as well as possibly asking for another option, maybe a mid-late round pick here. They do have 2 fourth-round picks, so if we add their later fourth, will they make this trade? Leonard Fournette for Xavier Woods and a 4th-round pick? Yes, they will. So helps us out twofold. We move on from Fournette, which we were planning on doing. We bring in a safety that we needed, and we get another pick in this draft class. Hopefully, we could end up using that one. We'll talk about the draft class a little bit later after we do all of our trades, as well as free agency. Now, I just want to try something here with the Steelers to bring in Derek Stingley Jr. at corner, because we do need another corner. Trying to set them Edwards-Helaire and a future 3rd-round pick. If we submit this offer, we're really close. So we'll tack on another future 6th-round pick, and that'll get the job done. So we do bring in Derek Stingley, which gives us now the opportunity to move on from one of our own corners, and that is going to be in Patrick Peterson. He regressed a little bit, his speed now under 90. He's 33 years old, so do want to trade him on. And we'll just see what offers we can get for him. I'm wanting to get picks specifically, so we'll see what options are, and it looks like primarily, looks like teams are trying to make just player for player or players for player. And that's not really how we could really do this state-only challenge. So let's try to see who has the most interest. And I was more so just wanting to gauge what the Kansas City Chiefs' interest were, because they only had the red flag, but they only had 2 corners on roster. And essentially, I got back our 3rd and 6th round pick that for next year that we just sent with Edwards-Helaire to bring in the new cornerback in Stingley. Don't know why that was so difficult to remember. So essentially, we just traded Edwards-Helaire for Stingley straight up. I think that worked out pretty well for us. So as we move into the second stage of open free agency, the real main area we need to address now, I feel like, is edge rush, and there's really not any option that makes sense. Obviously, we looked at Danielle Hunter, and they're asking for a lot of a trade. I mean, giving up another future first, I don't think that's something we could do at this point. So what are our other options? Well, we could look to the draft, see if maybe any of these guys may be good, and I don't think there's a lot of options. So when we look at each category of guys we could possibly go after, there's no left ends, there's no right ends. At DT, we have some guys, but they're not going to be very good. James Williamson, I mean, 6'3", 300 pounds, and wouldn't necessarily say that's an edge rusher. If we look at the physicality, I mean, super slow. Strength is okay, but the skill moves not really there to be an edge rusher with just the C, finesse, and power. No block shedding, so would be better on the outside rather than the inside, but he can't tackle, so not really a great option here. The other guy was a potential undrafted in Joe Ruiz, and very similar. Don't think he's going to be much of an option. There's no outside linebacker at either spot, so we may have to start once again Chase on the outside, and moving Milton Williams down to DT may be our best option. But with all the trades and the signings we've done, I think we've reached the point where we've done as much as we could possibly do here. I think we need to get into the draft, then maybe some other players might become more available after. So let's go through our free agent moves. Bringing back Damian Lewis, brought in Boston Scott and Davis Price, as well as Williams, so a whole new running back trio going into this next season. Ryan Wright back as our punter, Cade York in as our kicker. We bring back Cordell Float, who is lined up to be our starting slot corner. Brought in a backup strong safety in Roderick Teamer Jr. We brought back Patrick Johnson as a backup edge rusher. Same for Jabril Cox, except linebacker. Bringing back Jamarcus Bradley at receiver. Steven Sullivan at tight end. And Andre Anthony back as another backup edge guy. So I wouldn't say anything really splashy happened. The biggest splash signing, if you could even say that, would be Davis Price, I feel like. Hopefully he'll have a good season for us. The running backs, I mean, were all right for us last year. A change in playbook also might be in need, but for the most part, with the fact that there wasn't much in terms of new talent coming into the open free agency, I think we did pretty well there. The trades definitely help out. But now I think it's time to talk a little bit about this draft and what we could possibly do. Unfortunately, we don't have our first round pick. We had to use that in a trade. So someone like Josh Reverin, who may be one of the highest overall possible guys, we're really not going to be able to get unless he falls. Projected around 1, we did not get the last 5%, so we don't know where his actual talent range is. But we do know, I mean, even as a round 1, he doesn't seem to be all too splashy. Good strength though, so I mean, that's solid, but the run game is definitely lacking, finesse lacking. So I say run game lacking. He does have a run block power, but he's just very much power focused. If he falls to us, fantastic, but he's not going to be someone I'm going to try to trade up for. Especially when a little bit down the line here in Chip Edmonds, a projected round 2 to 3, actually a talent of around 1 to 2. So more likely we could possibly pick him up. Gonna have a little bit less strength, but looks like a little bit more agility to his game. Now, run game in terms of run block and finesse, still a little bit of a struggle, but power is still an A. I mean, a lot of decent things here with Chip Edmonds. I feel like very translatable between him and the other guy. So if we could possibly get Edmonds later, that could free up an offensive lineman for us to possibly trade, which might either just get us back some picks we do not currently have, or maybe some players. Besides the offensive line, really not a whole lot to look at. There is a day 3 corner, which we could use some depth. Lionel Potts, 5'11", 198, 21 years old, out of LSU. He runs between a 4.48 and a 4.53. Solid. In terms of his skill set, definitely is lacking in zone coverage, with that being a D, but does have the C, man coverage, C tackling, and block shed being a B with B catching. What I'm thinking is someone who could possibly transition out to a safety spot, being just shy of 6 foot, a little shy of 200 as well. Would be a little bit light for a safety, but maybe could provide us some flexibility. We also have a couple actual safeties, and we've only found out all the information on one of them. D. Schaefer was projected around 2 to 3, actually a day 3 talent, but he does have some decent zone coverage at 6'1", 209, and more typical safety size. Not very fast, a 4.52 to a 4.58, so he's not going to be a burner, but he does have good acceleration and quickness. He's not a great tackler, so definitely going to be a free safety. A lot of C's across the board here, but does at least have the B zone coverage, so some redeeming factors with D. Schaefer. The other safety, Eric Williams, only up to 90% completion, so we don't know everything, but he's labeled as a run support, which is very much backed up with him not having great cover skills. A good bit slower, about a 4.7. Strength, pretty decent though at 22 reps. Maybe someone who could possibly transition to a linebacker spot. Iffy with that, does have the C tackling, block shedding B. We'll see if he can maybe provide a little bit of some player flexibility. What is his size? 6'1", 212. I'm kind of thinking like an Isaiah Simmons situation. We'll see if he could fit that role. We should have some later round picks to take some shots on some guys, but this draft class definitely isn't fantastic. Hopefully the next one will be if we end up needing that one. But I mean, there's some guys here we could definitely try to go after, get our best value for the picks we do have. But without further ado, I believe it's time to start drafting. Our first pick is in the 2nd round, but it's the 2nd overall pick. So hopefully there'll be some guys available, and if we try to see who might be available with that pick, off the top of my head, I'm thinking the offensive lineman. Our current slated picks is the 2nd in the 2nd round, the 2nd in the 4th, and the 28th in the 4th, and then the 2nd in the 5th. So a lot of mid to late round picks, some day 3s really was where we're looking at. So potentially what we could definitely go with as a 2 to 3 actual talent round 1 to 2, Chip Edmonds very well could be there. So far he's the top guy on our board. Who knows if Josh Reverin fall, maybe that can make things a little bit interesting. And then I'm thinking defensive backs almost the rest of the way. We could go Potts, potentially with that earlier 4th round pick, or we might need to go D. Schaefer there, considering he was a projected round 2 to 3, but listed as a day 3. So probably actually the better pick to go there at that 2nd spot in the 4th round. Then with the later 4 and the 5, almost not really back to back, but not separated by very many picks. Probably go with a Lionel Potts and an Eric Williams there. So 1 for the offense, 3 for the defense. We'll see if that's how it falls. And the only way to really see is by, well, start getting along here. We'll go through the first 5 picks together, and then we'll jump to our pick because I'm not planning on trading up. So let's see. With the first overall pick, the Buccaneers select Emmanuel Joseph, a right end out of USC. The Eagles, with a 2nd pick, take Brock Loftus, right tackle out of Florida. The Bills, with the 3rd pick, go Matt Dodson, quarterback out of Northern Iowa. And the Raiders, with the 4th pick, go JoJo Langford, middle linebacker out of Oregon State. And with the last watch pick that we'll see here from other teams, the Steelers go Larry Wise, a wide receiver out of Penn State. We'll see if that was wise for him later on, but it's time to jump to our pick and see if some of these guys ended up actually falling to us. So still on our board, the top 1st round tackle did go, but Chip Edmonds still sitting here for us. So not much drama. For the first pick in this series, we will be going offensive lineman and Chip Edmonds. We'll see where we end up slotting him in at best, considering not as good of a run blocker, potentially a tackle kind of player. 6'4", 343, 22 years old, out of LSU. Has a motor that runs through the whistle and shows good discipline, won't get flagged much. He runs, not a bad 40-yard dash, 33 to 34 reps, has a little bit of some agility and acceleration in his game. I think this is a solid pick for us. So Chip Edmonds, first draftee, is a hidden dev. Gotta love it. With 86 strength, we'll go up to 84 with the coaching boost. Yeah. Could be really solid for us. Again, we'll see where he slots in, but either way, he will be a starting guy for us, which gives us another guy we could possibly trade to try to maybe bring in as someone to edge rush for us. Now from there, we're just going to go straight on way back to the 4th round. No drama here for us to try to go after. There's no one possible for us to draft. So in the 4th round, what does our current class look like? Is the safety D. Schaefer, is he still there on our favorites board? Go down to the bottom. No, Schaefer did go, so nothing as dramatic here then for us. There's no 2 to 3rd round. There is a 3 to 4, but he's actually listed as a potential undrafted. Maybe we could go with him with our 5th round pick if we really feel like reaching. But the guys that we at least have some interest in is going to be at corner and safety. Neither of these guys will start with us. Now, before we take a selection here, make our selection here, where do these guys sit? So there are still quite a few guys above Potts, so we don't need to make that selection just yet. At safety, there's a couple guys above Eric Williams, so again, I don't think we need to press it quite so early here. Maybe we see what kind of trades are available. Get some picks back for maybe next season, which could help us also, again, try to trade for some other players. So let's see what offers we have. And I think what we're going to end up doing here is just trading out of this spot entirely, not even dropping back later on in this draft class. But let's pick up 3 picks from the Titans for next season. A 4th, 6th, and a 7th. Mostly just hopefully try to use those to make some trades. So Titans, we'll accept it, and we'll see if any of those guys are available. They, again, don't think they're going to be starters, so if we miss out on them, we miss out on them. But we'll jump back to our pick in the same round, but the 28th pick, see if either of those guys are still available, and we'll still have the 2 picks left to hopefully try to make those picks. So if we take a look here, is Pot still available? Is the other safety who I don't remember his name, I'll be honest. Pot still available, and Eric Williams. Yeah, both of them are still available. Let's see who is most likely to go next. I'm pretty sure Potts, still has quite a few guys in front of him. So it looks like we'll be going after the safety first and Eric Williams. This is a guy who I said might possibly be somewhat of a safety linebacker hybrid. We'll see if that ends up being the case, as we do draft Eric Williams, a normal dev with 83 speed. Definitely fits more at linebacker with that speed. Strength 74, I think, would be solid there. Change of direction, everything there looks solid as a linebacker. We'll see the skills shortly. Now, just a few picks later, is Potts still there? Yes, he is, so might as well go ahead and pick him up. No drama really for this first draft class. Lionel Potts, welcome to the squad. A normal dev with 91 speed, 90 jumping, 86 change of direction, 89 agility, and 89 acceleration. Strength, lowly 64, but as a corner I think will be just fine. Actually pretty decent for a corner. But with that pick in, no more picks left for us, so let's advance to the end of this draft class and check in on the overalls of our new players. And our new guys actually aren't too bad of overalls to start with. A 73 left guard in Chip Edmonds, and then 67 for both Eric Williams and Lionel Potts. But let's check the individual ratings, see where these guys best fit. Starting with Chip Edmonds, the hidden dev offensive lineman. And for the most part, the run block and pass block is pretty well balanced. Definitely not super high, but I think he could possibly replace someone, maybe just the oldest guy on the roster. The run block finesse is a little bit struggling, but everything else I think is in a pretty good starting spot. He also is coming in as the 27th ranked left guard, so even if we keep him at left guard, he's already starting caliber. As for Eric Williams, the possible linebacker safety hybrid, what does he look like? Well, 64 zone coverage and man coverage is not very good. With 83 speed, does have decent play rec to start with, 72. Block shedding is a 62, so he wouldn't be a top end linebacker. Tackling, just shy of a 70. I think we could possibly play him at both, depending on the depth we have on the team. But yeah, considering we're drafting for depth player, I think that's pretty solid for us. He could play kind of two roles for us, which is always nice. And potentially maybe the same with Potts. We'll see if he can maybe do a corner safety hybrid for us. 67 overall, as we saw earlier, normal dev with 67 man coverage, 61 zone. There's not much press. Play rec, decent starting spot. Tackling a little bit low, but not awful. Hands really not there very much. And limited hit power. You could maybe try to say he could maybe play free safety, but without the zone coverage there, I don't feel like that fits all too well. I think it's just going to be a developmental corner for us, and at least give us some depth. Might be practice squad year one. We'll see depending on what our current depth looks like. But for the most part, I don't think that was too bad considering the draft class we had and the picks we had available to us. But let's check in on our rivals. So the Bucks actually had a pretty decent, at least total number of draftees, and for the most part, they all look pretty solid. They do have a new right end who's a 75, a new possible starting offensive lineman in Kevin Farr, a 73, and another starting guy, a 74. So technically their later pick in Sterling Allen was actually slightly better than their earlier pick in Farr. They do have a new backup quarterback, 65 overall, a 7th round receiver that's a 69 overall, and then a strong safety, 63. As for the Falcons, not too bad either. They do have a new quarterback. We'll see if he gets the start. Carlos Ruiz, 72 overall. And picking him, kind of later on in the first round, I don't feel like that's too bad of a pick for him. They have KC Haskins, a possible, again, starting defensive tackle in the 2nd round. Again, possible starter in the 3rd round. So the top 3 picks for both of at least the rivals we've seen so far, really solid. They have LaMichael Lewis, a left guard, 71. Then they go with a tight end, Emmett Thomas, 68. A running back in Lippett, 66. A left end, Maxwell, 68. And Jeremiah Amell, 65. Late on in the 7th round, isn't too bad. Center. For the most part, our entire division really seemed to draft pretty well and pretty even across the board. And the Panthers actually end up with a 1st round pick we could have made if we had a 1st round pick in Josh Reverend. 74 overall. Is that even much better than the guy we ended up getting much later on. 74 compared to a 73? No, not really. And it was a fairly decent gap. They picked him up at 15 in the first round. We got our guy at second in the second round. So I think we won that one. If we look at his individual ratings ourselves, he was also a hidden dev. I mean, that looks almost spot on. So I am much more happier getting our guy later on than spending a first round pick on a guy who had the same amount of talent as a second round player. They do also pick up another tackle in the second round, a little bit lower overall than us, 72, but picked a few picks later as well in Quan Barclay. They do draft a quarterback, Chris Wilkinson, maybe a project guy in the mid fourth round, a receiver in the sixth round, 65, and a center in the seventh, 65 as well. So around the board, I don't think our division did too poorly in the draft, very even across the board. So in terms of Chip Edmonds, where he can play, if we slide him over to right guard, he actually does go up to a 74. But we have two 30-year-olds, and they both play on the right side of the line in Trey Turner at right guard, and then La'el Collins at right tackle. Gonna keep La'el Collins because he's much higher overall. So comparing the two, Turner and Edmonds, you're gonna have a little bit less speed, or just less speed with Edmonds, but more acceleration, more agility, better change of direction, a slightly lower amount of strength I don't think would impact things all too much, slightly lower awareness but with better pass blocking, just a little bit lower pass block power as well as finesse, run blocking a little bit lower across the board, run block finesse definitely taking a hit, lead blocking to be a little bit lower but impact blocking a lot higher, stamina a little bit lower, toughness a little bit lower but better injury. So I don't think we really take much of a hit if we end up trading away Trey Turner. And the guy I really want to bring in is Danielle Hunter. So I just want to see where this puts us with Trey Turner. They don't have much interest in him at right guard. Maybe a little bit cheaty, but I'm going to see if that changes much at all if I move him to right tackle, which is a need of the Jets. And no, really didn't change their interest at all. We could possibly try at center. And maybe it helps a little bit, but really not all too much. I just want to see what we could possibly send. So in this next draft class, we'll have a 1, 3, 2 4s, 2 6s. So if I just slap in a 4 and a 6 there, where does that really get us in terms? Yeah, nowhere close to getting Hunter. So we're still on the search for an edge rusher. Now let's meet Season 2's roster. The top end still looking pretty similar. Justin Jefferson, Joe Burrow, and La'el Collins. That's where it kind of starts to change a little bit. Derek Stingley now up in that top 5. Damian Lewis, I think, also kind of moves up a little bit. Robert Hunt was with us majority of last year, and Patrick Queen. So really still not a whole lot of guys 80 and up. Definitely not a lot 90 and up, just the 2, and only 3 guys 85 and higher. So some work definitely still needs to be done to this roster. Joe Burrow, our starting quarterback. We brought back Ryan Griffin to be the backup quarterback. Whole new group at running back. Boston Scott and Davis Price will probably be the main 2, with a little bit of Darrell Williams mixed in there, I'm sure. No fullback this season. That will probably be where Darrell Williams plays. Justin Jefferson, DJ Chark, and Terrence Marshall will be our main receivers, with Jamarcus Bradley and Racey McMath as the backups. Same group as last year. Same goes for the tight ends. Foster Moreau, who started last year really great, then changed the playbook, kind of took him out of it. Stephen Sullivan will be our backup, and then Thaddeus Moss back as just the depth player. Left tackle still going to be Robert Hunt. Damian Lewis left guard with backups Chasen Hines and Shadiq Charles. Starting center, Lloyd Cushenberry the third, and then new starting right guard, the draftee in Chip Edmonds. We have the backup in Ed Ingram as well. Then at right tackle, La'el Collins still starting. Haven't moved Trey Turner yet, but we will look to do so, with Max Mitchell being a primary backup for the outside tackle spots. At left end, we're going to try starting Chason once again. There's also Patrick Johnson that we may have to switch back and forth between if we're not getting much done with Chason. We also have Braden Fehoko, who will probably just be a pure backup, and hopefully he doesn't actually see the field much at all. At right end, Arden Key was really good for us last year, the only real solid guy up front for us. And then Andre Anthony will back him up. In the middle of the defensive line, Devon Godshaw did actually produce pretty decently in the rushing department, not so in the passing, or the pass rush, I should say. Same goes with Milton Williams, who was playing an edge rusher for us last year, going to get moved into the middle, has 87 strength with a boost, but the 83 speed may help us produce some amount of rush from the middle. We also have Rashad Lawrence and Tyler Shelvin, who will be the primary backups for the DT spot, and then also Neil Farrell Jr. We'll see if he can slot in anywhere. At linebacker, Jacob Phillips will continue to be the start with Duke Riley backing up. Phillips only going to come out in the base packages. Middle linebacker Patrick Queen is our primary linebacker with Jabril Cox backing him up. And then at right outside linebacker, Quan Alexander, our number 2 backer, especially when we go to the nickel. We also have Jacoby Stevens returning, and we did find Carlos Woodard. I don't remember there being any linebackers that were available in the draft, but he was an undrafted guy, so I don't know if Madden just chucks out a few guys at the end, but we found him. He's a developmental guy for sure. At corner, a little bit different with Derek Stingley Jr., Christian Fulton returning as a starter on the outside, as well as Cordell Float at the slot. We have Lionel Potts, who will be the next man off the bench, and bringing back Kerry Vincent Jr. At free safety, we'll continue to start Jalen Mills. We also have Amik Robertson, and depending on how poorly or well Jalen Mills does, may change what we end up doing with this free safety spot, as we do have some younger guys who have some talent that I would like to try to utilize. Amik Robertson was a corner, moved to safety, and then Percy Butler did start for us last year after we made some trades, and it was okay. At strong safety, newly acquired Xavier Woods will get the start. We also have Roderick Teamer, also newly acquired, backing him up, as well as the rookie and Eric Williams. May lean more towards Williams to keep him developing a little bit more, considering he's 5 years younger and only 1 less overall than Teamer. Do have the new kicker in Cade York. Ryan Wright returns as punter. Now, as for this next upcoming draft, we'll have a round 1, 3, 2 4s, a 5, 2 6s, and a 7. But speaking of draft class, we need to talk about it. Now, I don't know what it is. I expected Louisiana to have a lot of talent in each of these classes. But yet again, we have a small total class available to us. Just 12 players who played at a Louisiana school, and they are all from LSU. There wasn't any other player from any of the other schools. So we'll talk about these all individually. Once again, no quarterbacks, no running backs, no fullbacks, 1 receiver, potential undrafted. 1 tight end, potential undrafted. As for the offensive line, there is a day 3 left tackle in Pat Harris. See if he ends up turning out to be anything. An undrafted left guard, 2 potential undrafted centers, no right guards, no right tackles. As for the defensive line, no left ends, no right ends, 1 defensive tackle. Luckily, he should be pretty good. A round 1 projection, and we already have B block shedding. However, he's a bigger dude. Tyquan McKee here, 6'4", 315, tells me he probably will actually be a DT. So if we end up going his way in the draft, that would mean that Milton Williams would have to get moved back out to edge, potentially. There are some guys at left outside linebacker. Dion Easley, 6'5", 243, could be an edge rusher, could just be a straight up linebacker, kind of hard to tell with that size, but is a round 1 projection. There's also Austin Bird, a day 3 projection, 6', 232, I would imagine more so a true linebacker. Middle linebacker, potential undrafted, no right outside linebackers, no corners, no free safeties, 1 strong safety, Doug Macklin, out of LSU, as they all are, 5'9", 209, around 1 to 2 projection. So when it comes to actual draftable players, there are in total 3 in the top 2 rounds, and we have 1 pick. There's not going to be a way that we could use our picks to trade up that high. We'd have to trade player plus picks, and I don't think we have a player to spare. So we're going to play this by ear. If any of these guys end up panning out as a round 1, we won't trade away that pick. But if they don't end up panning out as a round 1 and maybe are a little bit later, we might use that first round pick to go after an actual guy that would make a big impact at an edge rush spot for us this season. That's where I feel like we are the weakest currently. Also, potential safety next year, again, depending on what happens with Jalen Mills. Both of our safeties are on the older side, but we'll have to play that a little bit by ear. But all that will happen starting next episode. So make sure you guys are subscribing, bear icon on the bottom right, or scroll down, hit the subscription button and the bell icon. They're right next to each other. That way you're notified of when all these videos in this series goes live. This series will be posted every Wednesday and Saturday. On Monday and Thursday, we have the Commander's Replacement Squad series, and then Tuesdays and Fridays saved for FIFA 23, currently doing the My Player Career. So 6 long-form videos every single week, plus a bunch of shorts that go up throughout the week. So a lot of content. Make sure you guys stick around. Who should we go after? I don't feel like there's a lot of guys, at least in needy spots for us, but I want to keep some eyes on some guys around the league for possible trades. So let me know in the comments section. And until next time, where we get started season 2, where hopefully it's a much better season. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.